Hello and welcome to the Chundria Show. I'm your host, Chundria Brownlow. My first guest is Dr. Dravon James. She's an everyday peacemaker, inspirational speaker, life coach, and author of Freedom is Your Birthright. Dr. Dravon James, welcome to the Chundria Show. How are you?
I'm wonderful. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Well, let's dive on in, my dear. Let's talk about your book, Freedom is Your Birthright. What will your readers glean from it?
You know what? I wrote this tiny book, less than 100 pages, because I wanted people to understand that if it is up to me, if it is meant to be, it is up to me, right? We have the freedom to create the life experience that we want to have. And that comes with huge responsibility, but it's still our responsibility to do that. And so our readers, when they read this book, they're going to realize, oh my goodness, I am powerful. And some things have happened in my life that I maybe would rather they had not happened, but I can still take those experiences and add them to my treasure chest of knowings to build the life that I want. So this is an awesome book. I really encourage people. It's an easy read, less than 100 pages, but it's a kind of a reference book. You can go back and say, yeah, I remember I learned this tidbit to help me through this experience in my life.
You know, life is very hard these days, and I think people are facing challenges all their own during this time, prior to the pandemic, now currently still in the midst of the pandemic and still dealing with it at the end of, 2021. What do you hope they'll be inspired to do after reading it, though? I know you
What I hope,
glean from, but what will I walk away from? What will I be?
You'll walk away from it being able to live as your authentic self, with your eyes wide open, being able to take your head out of the sand and say, yes, this is happening. And this is the power that I have to transmit that into something useful in my life. Because none of us would choose the pandemic, but it's here, right? It's here. I'll tell you a quick thing. I remember as a kid asking my granddad about the depression. And he said, you know what? Someone gets rich in a depression too, right? Which means that we can take any experience. The experience is what it is, but we give it all of the value and meaning that it has in our life, right? It's here. We wouldn't have chosen it, but it is here. Now we have the freedom to say what this means in my life. Is this the end of me, or is this the beginning of something beautiful?
Absolutely. I mean, those are very powerful words. And I feel like all readers of this book will be able to glean empowerment from this book. So I'm excited that you wrote this. Conflict is all too common. And oftentimes we instinctively try to avoid it, right? So that might not always be wise. What are the benefits of conflict in a relationship? Because we don't take it like, we take it as like this is just the worst thing ever. But you have a different perspective on conflict. And what is that?
Yeah. So oftentimes we do look at conflict as the worst thing ever, right? And those people who do try to get in there, there's two approaches that we sometimes take: as the bully or the possum, right? The bully is the person who storms in there. They make their point. They don't listen to anybody, and that's just it. And then the possum is like, I don't want to fight. I just want peace. I'll go for anything, right? Neither one of those approaches are suitable for growth and development. And really, that is what conflict has come to do. Conflict says, hey, there is, and first of all, let me go back just a little bit. That word conflict, when we hear the word conflict, we automatically think war, a battle. Somebody's got to win, somebody's got to lose. So when I work with my clients, I encourage them, whether it be in their personal life or in their professional life, to automatically, when they have a conflict, to readjust the wording and think misalignment. What we have here is a misalignment. That lands differently in the brain, and it makes us think, well, if there's a misalignment, we must get in alignment. It's more cooperative. So when people lean into conflict, which is what I'm encouraging people to do, you'll find deeper, more meaningful relationships. You'll find more creative solutions. You'll find that you get out of a rut, you beat stagnation. So leaning in is really how we have all this creative juice. This is where this comes from. A situation arises and we put our heads together and we say, okay, these are some possible resolutions, and we come out with something wonderful.
It makes me think of how many people have launched businesses during the pandemic. Many people that I've known that have launched businesses. I never thought about businesses prior to March 2020, and they are thriving, present day. And so that really speaks to that as well, of being able to take that conflict, take that difficulty, take that adversity, and then turn it into a positive.
Right. And I know a lot of people who have thrived in their businesses. I even know people who were thinking about closing a business prior to the pandemic, but then things started, looking kind of iffy on the job fronts with other people. And they thought, well, this is the time for me to be more creative. In that the conflict of this world conflict spurred in them this creativity. They were able to think outside of the box, and things that had already been there pre-pandemic now became obvious to them because they were leaning into the situation, because really there was nowhere else to go. It was here. And instead of just having this defeated attitude, they say, you know what, let me see what I can do with this. And that's really what conflict is asking us to do. It's asking us to build more relationships, to be more collaborative with the situation, with the individuals, so that we can learn and grow. That's life, right? We're all about growth and development.
Absolutely. And lean into that conflict. Don't be afraid of it, because there could
Right.
be good on the other side of it. What word of encouragement do you have for individuals who are dealing with workplace conflict versus home life conflict? Is there a
Yeah.
difference in how you approach that?
Actually, no, the
Different?
skills are transferable. And I'm so glad that you brought that up. So the skills are transferable. Really, when you start to master conflict resolution, these skills can be used in either your personal environment or your work environment. So they're transferable skills. I encourage people to practice and practice a lot. And so home environment gives us a great place to practice, but the work environment is also a great place to get in there. First things first, automatically move that word, convert that word from conflict to misalignment. When you do that, you'll instantaneously, without thinking about it, you'll automatically think, oh, that's more collaborative. That means I need to communicate more. It means more strategy. It means that to communicate, I need to get in your presence. I need to be with you. I need to get a more understanding. And then we teach how to get in that person's presence, how to communicate, how to approach that. But you automatically know when you hear the word misalignment that we're going to have communication in order to align.
I like that you pointed out that communication is key, regardless of whether it's your familial relationships or your workplace relationships. Because you're right, at the root of it all, you still have to communicate how you feel in order to get through that conflict. So that's actually an exceptional point. You've coined yourself an everyday peacemaker. What does that title mean to you?
So I have a philosophy called everyday peace, where peace is defined as wholeness, completeness, nothing missing, nothing broken, totality. So whenever I'm doing coaching sessions, whether it be executive coaching or coaching, life coaching for an individual, I go back to the principles of this philosophy, which says that everything that shows up in our life, the good, the bad, and anything in between, has shown up for one reason. And that reason is to bow down and serve us as we consciously create our next level of greatness. So when you in that definition of peace, you hear that there will be conflict. There will be the unexpected, which feels like the unwanted, right? Those things will occur because it's part of the whole puzzle, right? If you've ever done puzzles over the holiday with your family, you know that one piece missing from that puzzle makes it incomplete. So if that one piece happens to be a picture of a storm cloud, we still need it. So when we look at life like that, knowing that things will show up, and then going back to the book, Freedom is Your Birthright, what will you do with this thing that's shown up? I know what you're supposed to do with it, but you do have a choice. You can use this as a catalyst to move you towards your goal, or you can use it as a stumbling block to keep you stuck. So that's what I mean by everyday peace. And I call myself everyday peacemaker because I teach people how to make that choice, which is proactive for their goals.
So tell me everything that you do for your clients. Like, what are your all of your offerings? If someone comes to, who can come to you, and how can you help them?
Oh, wonderful. That's so awesome. So I coach, like I said, I coach from personal perspective to executive coaching. And what I teach are leadership skills. So leadership is using the everyday peace philosophy. So I teach you how to become a leader in your life, whether it be in your personal life, in your executive coaching, different levels of leadership, knowing that when we understand that we are the leader, they say the speed of the leader is the speed of the game. And I absolutely believe that. When we accept that leadership role and understand how to utilize leadership skills, our health improves, right? We make different decisions. right? Our wealth improves, right? Whether we're working in corporate America or running our own business, our relationships improve. Absolutely, because a part of leadership skills is understanding how to approach conflict, understanding the potential for loss if you don't lean into conflict. So I work with leaders and individuals in their life, helping them to understand and utilize transferable skills. Leadership skills are transferable skills to improve whatever area of their life. So I have people who come to me, who are executives in Fortune 500 companies. I have moms and recently divorced individuals, and we're using the same skills, but applying it differently depending upon where they're having issues in their life.
So would you say it's more of developing the mental aptitude? Is it a mental service in a sense? It's like getting
Yeah,
them equipped in that way?
that way also the skill sets, because
Okay.
many people lack the support and the skills, right? So both categories, and honestly, we all could use a brush up on our skills. Well, some things that we don't use become rusty, right? So when I'm coaching with executives, they know these things, but they become rusty in them, and they realize, oh yeah, I call it that drift, right? We move away from it so often that we're drifted in the middle of the sea. We forget that we have these skills, and we come back and learn how to apply them in our current environment.
Awesome. So when you personally face challenges, how do you de-stress and remain calm? How do you accelerate the solution process when there's conflict? Did you just come out of the wound, in all of your brilliance, or how did you get to this point where you're able to coach others?
Well, you probably would guess this, through a lot of trial and error and a lot of conflict, right? If you read my bio, I'm from the South Side Chicago, grew up in poverty, and homelessness came through that whole ordeal, had marital issues, the whole gamut. I've lived a whole life that has been full of adventure, I like to say, full of adventure. And I studied through the whole process very early on in my quest for what I call peace. I read a book by Norman Vincent Peale. That was at age 17, believe it or not. And I just started down this path of discovery and reading and wanting to know how I could use all the things that showed up in my life, right? Use those things to help me get to where I was going. And I was evolving from 17 to now, you can only imagine. At first, I started off studying, trying to figure out how to not ever have any problems in my life. You're 17, right? But as I
You're
continued to
ahead of your
study,
time.
right, as I continued to study, what I realized, what I had really found was how to use everything, good, bad, and indifferent. How to use everything became a stepping stone to me. Everything and every resource and every book that I read, became a stepping stone for me. I said, I really had a desire to teach people that, some unfortunate things have happened in my life and in everyone's life, as a matter of fact. But those things have not come to ruin us. They really haven't. It's our perspective that has to change. And yes, we do need skill sets to do that. So you ask me, what do? I go back to fundamentals. I go back to gratitude. And I have a strong gratitude practice. I go back to self-awareness, which involves, meditation. I go back to those tools that help to center and ground me in the midst of what looks like a storm. So I realize I'm not out in the middle of the sea. I'm right on the shore. But when I'm not, and that's what I call that drift, right? When I'm not doing the practices, and when the storm comes, and that's when people stop doing their practices, right? When the storm comes, they start scrambling around. But having a coach there to say, okay, we have these skill sets, and I have a coach. I believe in coaching. I believe that, I look at LeBron James and every other great athlete out there. You don't win one championship ring and say, I don't need a coach anymore, right? Coaching is for life. And as long as you want to advance, you have a coach that helps guide you along that pathway.
I'm really proud of you, and I'm really honored to talk to you today because I'm so in awe of the fact that you've been through so much and you've used your life to help other people become the better versions of themselves. And so I think that's really splendid of you to be so selfless, and make that your practice. What last encouraging word you have for anyone watching who may be dealing with conflict on their own? They, speak to that person who might have started a new job. They feel like they're in over their head. Speak to the person who's overwhelmed. Speak to the person who's currently adrift. Just, leave us with some imparting words today, just as a word of encouragement, please.
Well, the first thing I want you to know is that you are right where you're meant to be. You know that because you're there. So whatever it is, you have what it takes to you are equipped for this situation. Look within, spend some time in the quietness, right? Find a coach, whether if you can't afford to get with a coach, get a confidant, somebody who can listen to you, right? And let you, I call it vomiting, let you get all that out, right? But then no running, no hiding, standing in your truth, right? Be ready to serve at a moment's notice. As long as you have that service, be ready to serve on your new job, in your hard situation, in your loss, serving with a smile, with a friendly word. And then lastly, but most importantly, in all things, be grateful. Find something. I could tell you so many stories about being grateful when you think you're at the bottom, you have nothing to be grateful for. You find something in that moment to be grateful for, and then more things will come into your life that you are absolutely grateful for.
That's a beautiful perspective, a beautiful belief system, and definitely a way to always to continually feel inspired no matter what life throws at you. So I want to thank you so much, so much, so much, Dr. James, for being my special guest here on the Chundria Show. What's the best way for us to follow you, connect with you, or if anybody's interested in your services, how do they do so?
The best way to connect with me is through my website, where you're going to find an awesome free gift on there right now for self-esteem, improving self-esteem and self-confidence, which are great leadership skills. And my website address is www.doctor, that's DR, and my name, Dravon James, and that's D-R-A-V for victory, O-N James.
For victory. Dr. James, it has been a pleasure to meet you and feature you on my show. I cannot wait to share the interview with you. You have a wonderful weekend, okay?
You too.
Okay, bye.